right now on Justice.
This is the biggest load of bull I ever heard.
The Cavalier Clintons are at it again. In tonight's opening statement, I'll tell you why what we now know about the Clinton Foundation and its pay-to-play politics are enough to disqualify Hillary Clinton from a move into the White House. Plus, can this campaign be saved?
It's so easy to solve. Everybody understands that.
I talked to the Trump campaign about the rough couple of weeks and how they can get right back on message and right back on top for November. Justice starts now.
Hello and welcome to Justice. I'm Judge Jeanine Pirro. Thanks for being with us tonight. Now to my opening statement. It wasn't about convenience, and this is not old news. She set up the personal server to prevent us from learning her private business. And it is only because of a government watchdog group and an ethical federal judge that we found out why this week. Why? Because Bill and Hillary Clinton are the Bonnie and Clyde of American politics. Now follow me on this one. Why would a woman, a lawyer no less, one experienced many times over in the ways of Washington, risk placing classified information, our live assets, the placement of satellites, drones, and our most secret plans on an unprotected, non-government, non-capturable server? Why would she violate federal regulations upon which she was schooled just before she became Secretary of State? Not to mention, violate federal criminal laws that would put her in jail. She's too smart to do that. Why would she take the time to make the effort to hide, destroy, and delete 33,000 emails? Now we know. She did it for the most selfish of reasons, the oldest of motives. She did it for greed and for power and for the almighty dollar. She did it to hide her shady Clinton Foundation dealings. She did it in order to do favors for Clinton donors and to put a price tag on our State Department. The same duo who came up with a scheme to rent out the Lincoln bedroom is back in business with a new and bigger scheme, one that is more far-reaching and worldwide, one that violates not only the law, but all codes of moral and ethical conduct in government. A couple willing to sell anything to the highest bidder for money and power. This is why the emails were hidden from the beginning, and this is why they were ultimately destroyed and deleted. This week we find out top State Department aide Cheryl Mills, formerly of the President Bill Clinton impeachment team, aligned with Hillary ever since, and also on that private server, was advised in 2012 that a Freedom of Information request was made for the number of email accounts used by Hillary Clinton. Now, dozens of senior officials throughout the State Department, including Clinton's immediate staff, obviously concerned, exchanged emails with the secretary and Cheryl Mills. They actually used the personal account to discuss the official business and advise her of this FOIL request. Their response to the request? There were no records. They were in active defense mode to hide their scheme. And when truth is put to the lie, that in fact there was an email account, they say they made a mistake. Had they been honest, that personal server would have been exposed years earlier. And also this week we find out a clear pay-to-play relationship between the Clinton Foundation and the Clinton State Department. An urgent email from Doug Band, formerly assistant to President Bill Clinton, now overseeing the Clinton Foundation, to Cheryl Mills and Uma Abedin, those two jewels on that private server, request that a huge Clinton Foundation donor meet a high State Department contact in Lebanon. The individual paid the price of admission, folks. Gilbert Chagoury gave between $1 and $5 million to the Clinton Foundation and pledged $1 billion to the Clinton Global Initiative. So, of course, arrangements are made for him to meet with Jeff Feldman, the former U.S. ambassador to Lebanon, the country where Chagoury was doing business. Abedin, ironically, paid both by the foundation and the State Department, immediately responds with, "I'll talk to Jeff," ignoring the agreement between Hillary and President Obama to create a wall between that Clinton Foundation and the State Department, confident that it would never be found out. And when we learned there was a private server, what happens? You do what anyone looking to hide the evidence does. You erase, you conceal, you hide, you destroy. Now, I've told you this before. The Clinton Foundation is nothing more than a money laundering operation parading as a charitable foundation, where estimates are that only 15% of its money goes to charities, the rest to expenses, a veritable slush fund for Clinton operatives and ex-employees, a convenient way to get money from foreign countries and donors not allowed to contribute to presidential campaigns, but willing to dump hundreds of millions of dollars into a foundation of a powerful Secretary of State and possible future president. Why and for what? For access, for information, for power. Folks, politicians on a much lower level, of course, have gone to jail for much less. And we find out this week that when the FBI, 3 separate offices, approached the Department of Justice to commence an investigation into this so-called not-for-profit 501c3, the Department of Justice refuses to do so. You know, and Fifth Amendment pleading Lois Lerner, when she opens files on small conservative organizations, she gets away with it too. A few years vacations, a bonus, and a pension. So it's no surprise that the DOJ refuses to investigate the Clinton Foundation. No surprise at all. The collusion between Loretta Lynch and Bill Clinton was on display for all to see in an astounding meeting on a tarmac in Phoenix, while an investigation of Bill Clinton's wife was being conducted by Loretta Lynch. And consider this one. Isn't it curious how Miss Lynch is willing to listen to the FBI when they recommend not going forward with charges against Hillary Clinton? But when the FBI recommends going forward with a criminal probe on a blatant pay-to-play bribery investigation of the Bill Hillary and Chelsea Clinton Foundation, their answer is a resounding no. And you know what, folks? The Clintons, they're not even grateful. They are classless. Take a listen.
The FBI director said when he testified before Congress, he had to amend his previous day statement that she had never received any emails marked classified. They saw 2 little notes with a C on it. This is the biggest load of bull I ever heard.
You know, the FBI's ability to lose decades of hard-earned and well-respected credibility is now on display for the country to see. You know, Jim Comey is the FBI director, and I told you, Jim, last week what happens when you run with these kinds of people. Jim, you're running with dogs, and you know better than I that when you lie with dogs, expect to get fleas. Jim, listen to that comment from Bill Clinton. Jim, my friend, you deserved it. And that's my opening statement. Tell me what you think on my Facebook page or Twitter, hashtag Judge Jeanine. And with me now, Progress Texas Executive Director and Hillary Clinton supporter, Ed Espinoza. All right, Ed, let's talk about the fact that you've got Hillary Clinton's aides employed by the Clinton Foundation and the State Department when Hillary Clinton promised President Obama that there would be a wall between the foundation and the State Department. How does she get around that when she signed an MOU, a memo of understanding with the president, that there would be no connection between the two?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me back. I do appreciate being here. And as far as the emails go, look, I've worked in a government office before. Many people have. You can't always control the emails that are coming in to your office. No, that's not my question. I'm not talking about the emails. I'm talking about Hillary Clinton said that there would be a wall between the State Department and the Clinton Foundation. So if there is that wall that she promised the President of the United States, how is it, number one, that Uma Abedin is paid by both the State Department and the Clinton Foundation, and that she is reaching out to the State Department to make sure that a Clinton Foundation donor gets a meeting with Mr. Feldman there, the ambassador to Lebanon? Well, I'm not certain that she was getting paid by both organizations at the same time, which is, okay, well, that's an important distinction. That I'm not familiar with those details, but I will say this. If there's an MOU between the State Department and another office in the government, that doesn't necessarily bind an outside entity by that MOU.
The MOU was between Hillary Clinton and the president, saying that there would be a wall between the foundation and the State Department.
I'm trying to give you an answer to it. Respectfully, if the other organization from the outside sends an email and they send requests, they're not bound by, the outside entity is not bound by that MOU. Now, as I was saying, I've worked for government offices before. Lots of unusual and sometimes misguided requests will come into those government offices. The important thing is do the offices receiving them have the judgment to act or not act on them? And in this case, I don't think there's any evidence that the State Department did act on those emails.
Yeah, they set up the meeting.
Nothing that's
Ed, they set up the meeting. And by the way, when you've got the same woman employed by the foundation and the State Department who's setting up the meeting for a guy who gave $5 million to the foundation, whether or not the meeting occurred is not the issue. Shigori and Feldman say it didn't occur, but they set up the meeting. You got a problem with that?
I'm really not familiar with those particular details, so I wish I could tell you more.
All right,
let's move on. That far on it.
All right. You know, Bill and Hillary Clinton released their taxes today, and 96% of their charitable donations went to their own foundation. Did you know that?
I was unaware of that, no, but I do think that it's telling that they did release their tax returns when, comparatively, Donald Trump hasn't released any of his tax returns. And I think that if we want to have an even playing field to see where charitable contributions are going, that let's see where Donald Trump's cards are. We know where the Clintons' cards are now.
Yeah, we do. And they put their money in their own foundation, which we don't really understand because accountants are telling us they have a whole new paradigm the way they set it up. Ed Espinoza, it's good to have you on the show. Thank you so much. All right, my political panel is still ahead tonight, and we'll get into all of this. But next, National Donald Trump spokesperson Katrina Pearson is standing by. I have a lot of questions about a rough few weeks for Mr. Trump and how this ship can get turned around toward a pointed November victory. My interview with Katrina is next.
We have a newspaper that's failing badly. It's losing a lot of money. It's going to be out of business very soon. The New York Times, okay? I love it. And they wrote a story today. Anonymous sources have said, 3 anonymous sources, anonymous this, anonymous that, the newspaper's going to hell. They've got a couple of reporters in that newspaper who are so bad, with, I mean, lack of talent, but it's going to hell. So I think maybe what we'll do, maybe we'll start thinking about taking their press credentials.
That's Donald Trump at a campaign rally in Connecticut a few minutes ago, suggesting he might pull the New York Times press credentials for an article that's citing problems within his campaign. This amid another tough week for him on the campaign trail and a new controversy with dozens of Republicans calling for the RNC to cut off funds to Trump's presidential campaign. Here with reaction is Katrina Pearson, Donald Trump's national spokesperson. All right, Katrina, I am looking at this article now inside the failing mission to save Donald Trump from himself, and Donald is correct. I mean, it is one anonymous source after another, and that you know, the campaign is in trouble. Is the campaign in trouble?
No, Judge, it isn't. But that has become the most common theme, whether it's the New York Times and other mainstream print press or even at CNN. There's always this anonymous source or two anonymous sources that seem to know more than even the campaign knows about the campaign. They've all been writing the Trump campaign obituary now for over a year. Even after Reince Priebus was campaigning with Donald Trump yesterday, they're still writing stories that the RNC does not support Donald Trump and vice versa. We have to remind people that Donald Trump is the one raising the money for the RNC. You know,
Katrina, though, when I hear Donald in Connecticut, and I'm not sure why he's in Connecticut, but we'll get to that in a minute, you know, talking about the New York Times, who cares about the New York Times? Who cares about what they say? I mean, people want the fight in Donald to be against Hillary Clinton, and what we're hearing about the Clinton Foundation, and this craziness of people contributing millions and billions of dollars getting access. It's the old Lincoln bedroom all over again on steroids. So why is he doing this?
Well, you will hear him talk about that as well, and the rally will be online for anyone that wants to see it that missed it tonight. He talks about all of the above simply because, look, Judge, he is fighting not just against Hillary Clinton, he is fighting the media. He's been able to get past the media by taking them on head to head because, as you know, when someone's constantly attacking you and you don't defend yourself, it actually works against you and not for you. And that's why we're excited to have Donald Trump as a Republican candidate, someone that's going to take these people head on and call them out for their lies. And I think more people now understand the biased media because they're definitely not hiding it anymore, but they're getting Donald Trump's side of things, which is something that's never been done in Republican elections in the past.
But you know, let's assume, you know, that the press is going to focus on things, and I find it stunning, Katrina, as a prosecutor, when I look at all of this stuff that we're just seeing in the emails that were deleted, expunged, concealed, burnt, wiped, whatever you want to say, and everybody just ignores it, and they're worried about what Donald meant about Second Amendment people in Supreme Court. I mean, I understand it, but at the same time, he now understands the press. Why play their game?
Sure.
Why not just get out there and say, and this week we saw this and this and this, and not even go in the other area?
Well, I mean, you're right. It's not news that the Clintons are corrupt to the core. I mean, they have a string of scandals behind them for over 30 years. The media has been covering for them. And, you know, it's no secret that there's corruption in the government. I mean, cronyism is why we have a Donald Trump nominee and why the Bernie Sanders people rose up and why the Tea Party even started.
Right.
Donald Trump is taking on everything. This is the entire establishment, whether it's the right or the left or even the media. And Donald Trump is taking them head on. He will be talking about the emails, and if you check your inbox, the campaign just sent out a very lengthy discussion on the emails as well as the pay to play for the Clinton Foundation. And the media is not going to talk about that. So the media, it has to be called out for what they are. The bias has to be pointed out so that when individuals do hear what the media is saying, they know to only take it with a grain of salt, simply because they're not telling the whole truth. And look, Judge, you mentioned earlier that there was one thing after another for the Trump campaign, and the reason why is because the media doesn't want to cover the email scandal because they've been covering for Hillary for a very long time. She left the campaign trail for the entire weekend after the news came out, and CNN broke it, that 3 FBI field offices want to investigate the Clinton Foundation, and no one is asking her these questions.
I gotta go, Katrina. Thank you so much. Still ahead, Trump pollster Kellyanne Conway is here to map out the path to November. And next, my political panel is standing by to talk Trump, Hillary, and my favorite topic, the Clinton Foundation. Justice rolls on in a moment.
Live from America's News headquarters, I'm Jackie Ibanez. A state of emergency exists in Louisiana and Mississippi tonight. 3 people are dead in Louisiana. Thousands have been rescued. More than a foot of rain has pelted the state since yesterday. Even the governor's mansion in Baton Rouge had to be evacuated because of waist-high water in the basement there. Meanwhile, more than 14 inches of rain drenched southwest Mississippi. No deaths reported. New York City police are looking for a man who killed the leader of a mosque in Queens today. The imam and an associate were killed shortly after leaving the mosque following afternoon prayers. Police say surveillance tapes show one man walked up to them and shot each in the head. They say no motive has been determined, and there's no reason to believe they were shot because they're Muslim. The mosque serves as a community of Bangladesh immigrants. I'm Jackie Ibanez. Now back to justice with Judge Jeanine.
A bad week for the Clinton family as new reports raise more serious questions about the Clinton Foundation. Joining me now, Chief Counsel for the American Center for Law and Justice, Jay Sekulow. All right, Jay, what have we learned this week from those emails that were released? I mean, what we have learned, of course, is what we've got Abedin being paid by Teneo, the Clinton Foundation, the State Department. And if there's this wall between the State Department and the Foundation, how does somebody get paid by both? Who's her, who does she respond to?
Yeah, so the wall was breached, and it was breached in a couple of contexts. Number one, as you mentioned, you had the situation where Huma Abedin is on the payroll of both the Clinton Foundation and the State Department. Now, that should be deemed a little ironic, if not, of course, in my view, illegal, because the idea that, the Clinton Foundation is a wholly owned subsidiary of the State Department is a wholly owned subsidiary of the Clinton Foundation, that's not the way it's supposed to work. There's a federal statute involved, 18 U.S.C. 208. You're not supposed to engage in that kind of financial transactions between departments. Then number two, Cheryl Mills, her chief of staff, is interviewing, while she's a State Department employee, going up to interview people for senior positions, not within the Department of State, but rather within the Clinton Foundation.
And do you know what they say about that, Jay? They say that that was charity work on her part. Do they really think we're that stupid?
Yeah, well, she was a volunteer. Here's the problem. The Secretary of State signed a document when she became secretary. It was actually on her Senate letterhead saying she understands the rules. There'll be no commingling of activities between the Clinton Foundation and the State Department. She breached those. And then with the sharing of employees. Have you ever heard of such a thing? I mean, I was a government lawyer. You were in government. I mean, sharing employees? You don't get to do that, especially when you're the State Department head, the Secretary of State. Then number three, you have the pay for play. Basically, you make a large donation, an email comes out saying to Huma Abedin saying, take care of this guy, basically VIP treatment. Now, if Hillary Clinton was not the Secretary of State, does that individual get that kind of access to the State Department? It really doesn't matter whether the meeting took place or not, although I think the next series of Freedom of Information Act requests needs to get that information. That's the information we need now. What happened once the request was made?
Well, Jay, certainly more to come. And the guy Shigori, a conviction, a lot of stuff going on, $66 million fine for corruption, a lot of bad stuff there. Very bad stuff. Anyway, Jay, thanks so much for being with you. More time next time.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right. Yep. Quite a week of controversy for both of the candidates. A lot to talk about. We're going to get right to it with my political panel, Republican strategist and Trump campaign senior advisor Boris Epshteyn, and political commentator and Clinton supporter Danielle McLaughlin, who we are welcoming to justice for the first time. Okay, I'll start with you. Not a good week for Donald. He's down 10 points. What is going on?
LA Times within 1 point. Bloomberg Reuters within margin of error. No problem at all well, listen, our bad week, quote unquote, was he said that there's political voter fraud. Voter fraud happens. Her bad week is you learn of more emails. You learn of the fact that she perjured herself in front of Congress when she said she turned over all her emails. And then you learn about Cheryl Mills' visits to New York, and she's saying those are for charity. We all know, just like you said, we all know better. Also, did she meet with the heads of Walmart and Amazon for charity? That's a lie. They continue to lie to the American people.
What I'm saying is, I made all those arguments. It's not helping him. It's hurting her.
Well,
it's hurting him and helping her. Why?
So we have 86 days left to go in this election, right? It's all about making a case to the American people that Donald Trump is better on national security.
But he made his case. He was up last month.
And polls go.
Okay,
Dukakis was
Danielle,
on 17 after the DNC.
Hey, LA Times, he had 10 points and now he's up by 1. So Donald Trump can't get out of his own way to fix this campaign. It's about discipline. This election, this campaign is a job. This is a job interview. He has shown a lack of discipline. He has shown a lack of real policies. And this nonsense about voters and rigging in Pennsylvania, there are 800,000 more Democrats in Pennsylvania than there are Republicans. So if we get out the vote, then Clinton will take this without any kind of voter rigging.
In 2012, there wasn't one voter for Mitt Romney in Philadelphia. You really believe that?
Listen to this.
Not one voter. I know voters personally.
I've got a
who voted for Mitt Romney.
What's your response
My response to that is in 2012, the state of Pennsylvania signed a legal stipulation saying that they had no knowledge of any voter fraud in that state or outside.
That doesn't mean it didn't happen. And I was on the McCain campaign in 2008, and I will tell you for a fact, I focused on voter fraud. I'll tell you for a fact it happened in Ohio,
I'm a prosecutor. I know what happens. I prosecute it. Okay, I don't need some political person to tell me it doesn't happen.
I'm just reminding the people, I'm not telling you.
Let me go back, though. You say that he's running for a job.
He is running for a job.
And last month he was winning. So what happened?
I think that he is using what worked in a primary campaign and it's not working in a general.
That he hasn't made the pivot.
He hasn't made the pivot. He is shrinking the map for Republicans.
Of course he's made the pivot. Again, you're talking about polls that are 86 days out. Dukakis was up by 17 after the Democrat National Convention.
But not after Irene.
What is he doing in Connecticut tonight?
He's in a great rally in Connecticut.
It's not a swing state. Why is he in Connecticut?
Because Donald Trump is somebody who is a complete game changer. Look at the states like Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Connecticut. They are in play. And if you go 5 miles away from the coast in Connecticut, Connecticut is a town with a lot of those Rust Belt voters, and he's getting those energized, and we will win
He needs to be in a swing state. She's beating him in the swing state.
She was in swing states all week. He was in Florida about 5 times, in Pennsylvania about 5 times.
What Donald Trump is doing.
Where's Hillary today?
Excuse me. Let me finish.
No, let her finish.
What Donald Trump is doing now is what Richard Nixon did many years ago. He tried to visit all 50 states. That is a strategic error on Donald Trump's part. He needs to focus on Ohio, on Florida. He needs to focus on North Carolina.
He's not going to Hawaii or Alaska. It's not the same thing as 1916. First of all, second of all, Richard Nixon won that election if it wasn't rigged by the Kennedys. Second of all, Hillary Clinton is nowhere today. She's down all weekend.
Can I say something about Donald? Everybody knows that he's my friend in the interest of disclosure. I know Donald Trump. The man doesn't sleep, all right? If he can go to 900 states, he would. That's just who the man is.
And we're getting voters in those states. We're getting people excited. And also, by having a rally tonight, it's all over television. So it's not just Connecticut that's seeing him. The whole country is seeing him. It's being covered because
he's a workaholic. I don't know about her.
No, she's taking a nap. She's down all weekend. She's taking a nap. Bill Clinton was in Vegas last night. How'd that go?
Every single person that's
What happened in Vegas? He's the one who said that it was BS that Jim Comey, the head of the FBI, who did him a solid. Excuse me, Danielle, was that stupid?
I cannot comment on that, and I will not.
What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
I want to go back to whether Hillary Clinton is a hard
No. Is that dumb for the President of the United States to say that's BS for the FBI director who cut his wife loose from a case?
She likes Loretta Lynch, but he doesn't like Comey, huh?
What I will say is Loretta Lynch and, this whole Clinton, Plain, Arizona, complete mistake. Absolutely mistake. Clinton has made mistakes. I can admit that.
And now we know that Loretta Lynch also shut down investigations. 3 FBI offices, field officers, wanted to investigate the foundation. Loretta Lynch shut it down.
She can do that.
She could do. She's been promised that job in the Clinton administration.
Hillary promised it on television.
Donald Trump is promising his daughter a place on his cabinet. If that's not cronyism, I don't know what
So is Bill and Hillary Clinton. Come on.
I
said Chelsea will take the role of First Lady.
That's not the same. That's not the same as the head of the DOJ cutting them a break.
It's always good with the panel here. What are the key states that can unlock a victory for Donald Trump in November? Kellyanne Conway is a Trump pollster, and she's here to walk us through it next. The battle for the swing states is on, and new polls this week show Hillary Clinton with a significant lead in some of the key states. Here to break it all down and talk about what Trump needs to do to turn it around, Trump campaign pollster Kellyanne Conway. All right, Kellyanne, good to have you on Justice. What I want to do is I want to talk about those swing states. Donald is not doing as well as he was doing. He's down nationwide, but I want to go through some of the states. I'm going to get them up on the screen. I want to start with Florida. Now, he won big in Florida. Right now, Hillary's at 44. He's at 39. It's a must-win state, correct, for Donald?
We have a huge field operation there, and Mr. Trump was there this week. Governor Pence, his vice presidential running mate, has been there. That's a state where we've got a great ground game. And the other thing is, the question that nobody's asking, Judge, is why is Hillary Clinton at 44% in Florida? If Donald Trump really takes the wings off of butterflies, as the mainstream media tells us every day, if she's very defined, if she has all the king's horses, all the king's men, all this staff, all this money, all this support, why are her floor and ceiling so dangerously close together? His number is more likely to be dynamic and on the move. It's his number that can go up. She's basically been hovering around the same place for a long time. And I'll tell you what else has happened in the last 2 weeks. Scarcity has benefited her. All of the news coverage is about him. When you shroud her and you protect her and you hide her, she does very well. She tried to win the primary that way, didn't she? They called her the nominee for a long time. Then all of a sudden she had to come out and debate Bernie Sanders. He went on to win 22 states. She doesn't wear well. That's why they keep her hidden. You can't hide forever.
But Kellyanne, when you look at what's going on, if she hides, they go after Donald.
Exactly.
She can have these emails come out as they did today that to me indicate a blatant pay to play. And, she just, her numbers go up and they attack him for saying, Second Amendment or this or that.
And that's why I wanted to raise it with you. We can talk about numbers, we can talk about demography, but this is an important point because it's one thing to have unfair and biased media coverage. We expect that of the Trump campaign. It's quite another, Judge, to have incomplete coverage of this race. Last I checked, there are 2 major party candidates running for president. Only one gets all the coverage. And look, I know it's more exciting to cover Donald Trump. He's a historically dynamic candidate.
He's fascinating.
I know she's boring and she lies for a living and people get tired of her. She's very grating, but everybody has a duty to cover her. She can't hide forever, and I'm telling you, as soon as you start seeing more of her, not in her $60 million worth of ads, but seeing more of her on the stump, it won't go well.
All right, let's go to the next state. What do we have, guys? Colorado, she's at 46, he's at 32. What does he do to turn that around?
Visit Colorado and also tap into what I think is a tremendous grassroots operation in Colorado. Mitt Romney lost that state by 6 points plus, so that's a state that has been elusive.
Is it the Hispanics in Colorado?
Well, Mitt Romney got less than 30% of them in Colorado. So for all the people who are on the ledge, hand-wringing, it's all over, they should go back and look that we weren't left with a very good hand to play there, structurally, institutionally, by the last Republican nominee. But no Republican nominee is going to end up with 32% of the vote in Colorado. I think there are 5 states in play right now. I'd expand into Colorado a little bit later. But if you talk about Ohio, Pennsylvania, Florida,
all right, let's go to
Iowa,
the next state. Let's go to the next state, guys. We've got North Carolina. Hillary 48, Donald 39.
No. We see it tighter inside. We have a tighter race internally, Judge. And the fact is that that's another place where both Pence and Trump have been often recently and will continue to go. It's a state where you've got a Republican governor who's up for re-election this year. That will play into this.
Haley
McCrory.
Pat
McCrory. And it's a state that it's the only one of the 9 swing states that Mitt Romney actually carried, and narrowly. Remember, there were 9 swing states left. He won 1, which means he lost 8. Let's do the easy math. So we feel this is August, not October, and that we're poised to earn these votes to continue to campaign.
But if Donald is the one who's all over the place and she's not, he's still low. He's still lower. I mean, we just talked about that with the panel. She's not showing up anywhere. She's got all the bad factual press, and he's got all the illusionary press, negative press. Let's keep going. Then Pennsylvania, Hillary 48, Donald 37, and that mess.
So we need to increase our margins in the suburbs of Philadelphia, Bucks, Berks, and Montgomery County. There's no question that needs to happen. There, too, it comes down to ground game. It comes down to candidate appearances. And that's also a state, though, that, again, Governor Romney lost by 7 points. And I keep going back to that for a very simple reason. I want people to understand that these institutional problems for a Republican nominee did not begin with Donald Trump.
Yeah, but nobody cares about that. Nobody cares about Romney. He lost. If he lost, he's saying Donald's going to lose. Let's go to the next state.
No, he's going to win Pennsylvania.
How could he win it? It's is in a mess.
Because it's August, not October.
All
Let's
right.
talk again. He was ahead in Pennsylvania
Next state, guys.
a month ago. He will be there again.
What's the next state? Iowa. Okay, he's ahead.
Iowa's fascinating, and Iowa's a state that does not like Hillary Rodham Clinton.
Why?
She came in third there behind Obama and John Edwards.
Why?
In 2008. She just doesn't, they don't cotton to her. She doesn't click with people in Iowa. She effectively lost there to Bernie Sanders this year. She won by like a less than a percentage point.
All right.
That's a place where Donald Trump will do well. Huge rallies this week for Governor Pence there. It's a place where, as the governor of Indiana, he can go into Iowa again and again. I'd put him there.
All right, Kellyanne Conway, we're going to bring you back and keep going through
Thank
this.
you.
Thanks so much for being with us. And who will millennials turn the lever for in November? We're debating it right here next. Stay with us. Less than 90 days until Election Day, and the stakes are high. So, could the millennial vote end up being a make or break for Donald or Hillary? Let's ask some millennials, Democratic strategist for Trump supporter Harlan Hill, and Democracy for America communication director and Clinton supporter Neil Soroka. All right, gentlemen, right now, you, Harlan, are for Donald Trump, and you, Neil, are for Hillary Clinton. Both of you previously for Bernie Sanders. So, Harlan, as you look at this week, it has not been a great week for Donald Trump. And why do you think that is?
Well, I think that he's stepped on a rake a couple of times. He's making some style mistakes that I think that are avoidable. But it's important that he starts telling one important story that millennials will respond to. They are anti-taxes, they are anti-regulation, and they're anti-central control. If he starts framing the liberal ideology in those terms, I think that he can speak to a lot of millennials. Remember that we came of age during Obamonomics. We don't remember good times. And if he starts talking about how it's possible to have a pro-growth president in the White House, I think that a lot of us will respond to it. And it won't come from social programs. It'll come from economic growth.
What do you think of that, Neil?
I think that's pretty funny. I mean, listen, we know that Bernie Sanders got a record number of millennials out to the polls in the Democratic primary. And right now, there are 3 times more Americans believe that aliens live among us than Bernie Sanders supporters who are supporting Donald Trump. He is an absolute train wreck for millennials, and it is not going to get any better anytime soon. This is one of the most diverse generations this country has ever seen. And what you've got is a candidate running a bigoted train wreck of a campaign, and that's turning millennials off around the country, and that's not going to change anytime soon.
In all due respect, only 43% of millennials say that they're going to vote for Hillary Clinton, according to the ABC News Washington Post poll. So the notion that there's overwhelming support for her is wrong. It's not founded in the facts. I mean, look, 25% say they're going to vote for Donald Trump, another 16 are going to vote for Johnson, and then another 9 are going to vote for Stein. So this is cut up. She doesn't have the appeal that Barack Obama did or Bernie Sanders did to millennial voters and Sanders supporters.
Well, here's what we know, is that there is absolutely no way that Donald Trump is going to win millennials' votes. And listen, I think it'll be interesting to see where polling ends up as we get closer and closer to Election Day. I think more and more millennials are going to be these smart voters that they have been so far, and understand that this election is really a choice between 2 candidates. One candidate who is a bigoted circus barker, and the other candidate, Hillary Clinton. And I think they're going to naturally gravitate towards the sensible
Neil,
candidate.
With all due respect, Neil, if you want to call one names, you have to call the other one a liar.
A neocon.
Sure, that's going to happen. That's already happening here.
Excuse me. I get to ask the question. A liar and someone who has repeatedly lied to the American people about a video, about classified emails. Her husband comes out and basically says the FBI director is full of a load of BS. I mean, come on.
Yeah, listen, I think that is going to be the charges that are made against Hillary Clinton. And listen, I think that millennial voters are watching Donald Trump, what he says and what he does, and that's more important than any of these innuendos and claims that are being made by... What's that?
Do you call it an innuendo when someone lies to the American people? Is that an innuendo?
Listen, we know that Donald Trump is a repeated liar to the American people. This is a guy who can't get through a speech without saying something untrue.
Neil, what did he lie about?
What has he lied about?
Yeah,
what has he lied about?
Tell me.
So one thing that he lied about just this past week is that he was somehow trying to gin up gun fanatics when instead he was actually threatening a presidential candidate. That was a lie.
Really? And what about the fact that the night in Benghazi they waited 13 hours and Hillary Clinton said that it was about a video and we couldn't have gotten there in time? Was that the truth?
How many millions of dollars are Republicans going to pour into investigating Benghazi and finding nothing?
Do you really believe
hundreds of millions of dollars?
Huh?
They have found nothing.
They have found nothing.
What have they found? What have they found to go after Hillary Clinton with?
What are they going to go after her with? The fact that there are four people who died and she criticized.
Yeah, they are, which is incredibly unfortunate.
You know what? Let me explain something to you. When I ask a question, you listen and you answer. All right?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Look, Hillary Clinton does not, I mean, she's a neocon. She's supported every war since Vietnam. She's pro-Wall Street. She's anti-worker. I cannot in good conscience support her. And I think a lot of millennials actually are in the same boat as me. And when you look at the polls, if you trust the polls, I'm right.
All right. So, Neil, what does Donald Trump have to do to get your vote? And Harlan, what does Hillary have to do to get your vote?
So Donald Trump needs to run a completely different campaign. Yeah, Donald Trump needs to run a completely different campaign. He needs to go back to 2008 and maybe think about how he's going to comport himself over the Obama presidency. I think, listen, he's lost the millennial vote. It's not going to happen anytime soon. I will come back on this show and grovel if he wins the millennial vote after this election is over.
Harlan?
It's important to say that he may not win the millennial vote outright. He may not win a plurality, but he is going to peel enough voters away.
All right, Neil, Harlan, thanks for being with us. And we're going to be right back. Tomorrow night for a special Sunday edition of Justice at 9 p.m. And you'll get a dose of street justice, too. The Greg Gutfeld Show is next. Good night. See you in 24 hours. Actually, 23.